An advisor once told me that when you start a company, you need to be able to find the most trustworthy people to be part of your team. She said her litmus test for choosing teammates came from asking herself the following question: would this person be the one I'd pick if I were injured while up on a climb to the top of Everest in the middle of a blizzard at night? Or would I believe that this person could guide me down safely? If the answer was yes, then the person could be part of the team. If no, then move on. I remembered her advice and applied it, as well as finding people with world-class capabilities when I recruited my core teammates at NuBiome. The first person I'd have the privilege of introducing you to is Professor Richard Blankenbecler. He's our Chief Biophysicist. Professor Blankenbecler and I met around 2003 when we were exploring the possibility of developing technology to protect computers and their networks from computer viruses and other attacks. Surprisingly, this exercise would help us to develop new ideas for understanding health problems. All of our core team look up to Professor Blankenbecler due to his impressive character and incredible intellect. As you'll see in our series of talks with Professor Blankenbecler, he's lived an extraordinary life. He grew up in rural Tennessee and Kentucky and worked hard to become a musician, professor of physics, a peer of numerous Nobel laureates, mountain climber, advisor to the U.S. government on national defense strategies, and a devout family man. He's lived his life to its fullest, and we will share with you several of his interesting experiences. Besides being a teammate, he embodies our belief that Liovi lovers can live their life to their full potential.
Okay, my name is Richard Blankenbecler, and I have been a physics professor for many years. I was at Stanford at their Linear Accelerator Center for 35 years. I was at Princeton for 12 years, and in public school before that. All right, my family background is my mother was one of 11 kids. My father was one of 10. My father's mother was illiterate. As far as we know, she had never been inside a school building when she was growing up. She married at like age 15, we think, and according to the family Bible, and had quite a slew of kids. But she ended up being a single mother. She raised them all, made sure they all graduated from high school, and she was a rather remarkable woman. My mother's family is from Kentucky, from Harlan, which was called Bloody Harlan in the old days, and which was a few miles from Kentucky, North Carolina, and Virginia. When I came home from the hospital, there was an older boy living with my parents. Namely, it was my cousin Jack Mayo, who was having some family troubles. I don't know exactly what they were. I was kind of young at the time. But I grew up thinking he was my brother, and I still consider him my brother. He had an excellent career. He ended up in the Air Force, and he was flying B-51s over Japan. And he happened to be flying over the west coast of Japan when the day the first atomic bomb was set off. And he can describe that in great detail. But he's a wonderful man, and he's someone I tried to emulate all my life, but never rose to his standards. I grew up, and I think I was a little bit of a ne'er-do-well, and I tried almost everything. One story that my sister likes to tell is that right after World War II, there was a lot of surplus equipment for sale, and I ordered a Navy diving suit, and I built a helmet out of a large lard can, cut a hole, applied a plexiglass window, attached it to the suit. I had a garden hose, and I had it attached to a pump. And one night, some friends forced me to go out and test it in one of our nearby creeks. And I got out, I got almost underwater, and discovered that the suit had a very bad leak. And so I almost drowned, but not really. Anyway, and then when I came home that night, I had changed into my friend's clothes. We went by his house, and my mother hit the ceiling. Where did you get those clothes? I never saw those before in my life. So I had to admit to my mom and dad what I had done. Anyway, so that was sort of my childhood. I would try everything. I did win the soapbox derby in my hometown and went to Akron for the national finals. And I didn't win there, but I got some kind of award for the design of an improved steering system, which allows you to much more accurate way of steering. And but I lost anyway. I think one story that might be interesting, my father was very good self-taught musician. He loved classical music, and so therefore I took piano lessons, but I was not very good. I didn't want to practice, and I just didn't really care. But one day I was at my aunt's boarding house having lunch in the middle of the school day, and there was this distinguished gentleman sitting next to me, and an older couple sitting across from me. This was served American style, I think it's called. And he said, "Do you like music?" And I said, "Yes, of course." And he said, "Do you play anything?" And I said, "Sort of, piano." And he said, "Would you like to take gospel piano lessons?" Turned out he was a graduate of either Juilliard or Eastman, I can't remember which one, but he, as a concert pianist, but he couldn't make a go of it, a career in that. So he was traveling around the country with a very small church group, and evangelical type church group, and he was teaching gospel piano to anyone who wanted to learn. So I said, "No, I'm not interested in gospel piano." So he says, "Oh, how about music composition and chords and structure of music?" And I said, "Oh yeah, well that sounds more interesting." So I talked to my parents, and they paid for about 3 weeks of instruction from this gentleman. And I learned more in those 3 weeks than I had had in 5 years of taking piano lessons before. And the appreciation for music was dramatic because you could see what was behind the music and why the music was such as it was. And it paid me in good stead because I got I was interested in jazz. And so I played with a few jobs with local groups. But then when I went to college, that's the way I worked my way through college. My parents paid for the first semester, and from then on I was on my own. And I had my own group. We were called Cool, and spelled with not a K, a C. And we played all kinds of dances and parties and stuff around campus. And that's the way we made it through school. This was Miami, Ohio, in Oxford, Ohio. Great school and great physics department. I married between my junior and senior year. A wonderful girl, Lois Maine. And so during the senior year, to make a little extra money, she wanted to teach, but she had a lot of courses to get caught up on. And so she was going to school full time, and I had done most of the courses, so I had plenty of free time. So I got a job at Armco Steel Corporation in Middletown, Ohio, and every day I would drive over there and go to work and on the swing shift and come back. And anyway, that's the way we lived the senior year. And I may be the only person in history that's ever gotten into Stanford University, or maybe any other major university, in graduate school without ever having applied. I did apply, and I sent in my application, but since I didn't hear from them for a long time, I called up and found out that they never received it, or if they did, they lost it, or maybe I never mailed it. I don't know what. But anyway, And so my head of the department at Miami talked one of the professors at Stanford into just inviting me anyway. So I ended up at Stanford, even though I didn't deserve, and I really didn't have much physics backgrounds, but I sure got caught up fast. And that was my introduction to real physics. And Stanford was a great place for graduate students in those days. Great professors, and a great place to live, actually. So my wife then got a job teaching while I was in graduate school. And we had a daughter my last year of graduate study, and named Lori. And so that made a full plate.